Alright, so here we have our sea star. So this is a member of the phylum Echinodermata, and more specifically a member of the class Asteroidea. So all members of the class Echinodermata, for the most part, have 5 legs. They have radial symmetry, and then in the class Asteroidea, they have these 5 legs. In a couple of classes, I brought up our old pet. This is the 4-legged sea star, which, it's named that way because it has 4 legs. And so this doesn't have that pentamerous design or body plan that the regular sea stars do. So this was a neat creature to have in our lab, and kind of have it in our saltwater tank. So the way I'll set this video up is I'll use the specimens I had on Thursday's lab. So I had this specimen here, and then I had a dissected specimen where you could see the water vascular system as well. So I'll go through external anatomy first, and then we'll dive into internal anatomy. So because this specimen doesn't have bilateral symmetry, we can't just call it or describe it using anterior or posterior, or like a front or a back. So if you try to find the front of this starfish, you'd be pretty hard pressed. Instead, what we use is the terms aboral or oral to determine what the top and the bottom are instead. So aboral is the side without a mouth, and then oral is the side with a mouth. So right here, we're on the aboral side. There's no mouth. If we flip it over, we have the side. So this is the side with a mouth right here in the center. That's a fish scale. We have the oral side, and then the mouth right in the center. So while we're on this oral side, I'll talk a little bit about these structures. So on each one of these arms, you have these grooves. And so these are called ambulacral grooves. And inside each one of these grooves are hundreds, if not thousands, of these small structures, and these small structures are called tube feet. So tube feet are used to move this starfish around through locomotion, and they can take a prey item and then pass it along to each one of these tube feet, bringing it closer and closer to the mouth. So this mouth is centrally located, right where all these arms connect. And so all food items are going to be entering the digestive system through this mouth. If this sea star decides to eat a fairly large prey item, it'll then spit out its cardiac stomach right through the mouth, and then it will envelop this prey item. After a while, once it becomes small enough, that prey item, it becomes digested enough, it becomes small enough to enter the mouth, it's then brought into the mouth from there. So if we now look at our sea star from the aboral side, or the side without a mouth, there's really only a few bits of anatomy. So there's an anus on the center of this disc right in the middle, but you need a dissecting scope or a really good set of eyes to view it. There are all these spines that are running down the length of each of these arms and along the disc. And so there are 3 different types of spines. There's regular spines, there's dermal branchi, and there's the papillae. And so you can't really see the difference between those 3 without using a dissecting scope as well. The major piece of anatomy on a sea star that's on the aboral side is this structure right here. So this small white disc that's on the aboral side is called the Polarite. And so this is the entrance to the water vascular system. So that water vascular system is acting like a hydraulic system where it's controlling the movement of the tube feet and then the movement of these arms. In order to prevent any dirt or debris from entering those canals, this Polarite is acting like a filter. So that's blocking all dirt and algae and phytoplankton from entering those canals, keeping those canals clean so that they can function to the best of their ability. So that's about it for external anatomy. There's really not much on the outside of a starfish. If we cut it open, we get something like this. this starfish has had its endoskeleton removed a little bit, so we cut a semicircle around this madreporite on either side so that we can expose the ring canal and the stone canal. So what's removed here is what's called a pyloric stomach, and so this is a second chamber of the stomach where chemical digestion is taking place. So right here is where that pyloric stomach would be found if it were still in its normal position. So right on the underside of this flap, right here is where the madreporite is. What you see, this thin white tube right here, this is the stone canal. So this connects that madreporite to the ring canal, which is the structure that looks, well, like a ring or a donut. So water is flowing from the madreporite on the underside of this flap to the stone canal and then into this ring canal. From there, it's now traveling into this ridge-like structure right here, which is the umbilical ridge, or it's also called the radial canal. So each one of these arms has a radial canal that is spanning from this ring canal here. Inside this umbilical ridge and within and attached to this radial canal are all the tube feet. So each one of these small structures here, all these thin membranes, are called ampullae, and so this is where those tube feet are attaching to outside of that umbilical ridge here. So on the underside of the umbilical ridge is the umbilical groove, which you saw on the oral side of this starfish. So that's it for the water vascular system. Just remember that water is flowing from the madreporite to the stone canal, ring canal, radial canals, and then transverse canals, and then into the tube feet. The transverse canals you cannot see without taking a cross section of one of these legs and then using a dissecting canal. So oftentimes I just kind of skim over it without really focusing on it. The other major structures that you can see in these legs or these arms are the digestive glands right here and the gonads right here. So the digestive gland is found attached to the aboral side of the starfish. The gonads are found on the oral side. So the digestive gland is on the aboral side, so it can connect to where the pyloric stomach is right here. On the underside of this ring is where the cardiac stomach is attached. So if you kind of think of the stomach of a starfish, it's shaped like an hourglass. So the bottom side, or the oral side, is the cardiac chamber, and then the top side of that hourglass, the pyloric chamber. That pyloric chamber is connected to this point where these lines meet, and so this is the anus right here. All food waste is being excreted out through these pores, or through that pore, the anus. And that's about it for a sea star dissection, or at least that's as much detail as I went into during the labs. So, went through the water vascular system. Basically, you have water flowing from the madreporite to the stone canal, ring canal, radial canal, and then into the transverse canals and tube feet. I went very briefly into the digestive system. So you have food coming up through the mouth into the cardiac chamber on the underside of this ring canal. And then it passes through this chamber into the pyloric chamber, which would sit right here. And then these digestive glands are producing enzymes or acids, pumping it into the pyloric chamber, where it then aids in chemical digestion. And from there, food is then traveling out through the anus right in here. And then the third system is the reproductive system, and so that is these gonads right here. So that's it for a sea star dissection. Relatively simple organisms, especially compared to the other dissections we have this half of the semester.